Hello viewers, welcome to our program on immigration and legal affairs. I am your immigration attorney Michael Fulwani, and once again we have with us attorney David Nachman. David, welcome.
Thank you, Michael.
Now, lot of interesting things to talk about in today's program, and
Yes,
one of
quite
the
a
things
number.
that we will talk later after you have an opportunity to talk about, highlight about some of the important issues, is the position of Republicans on the immigration and the position of Democrats on the immigration issues.
Okay.
This way they can get a picture and then make the decision whom to vote for and all that. Before we go into that, please tell our viewers what are some important developments or announcements that you have.
Yeah, actually, I'd like to run through a couple of highlights for our viewers, and then Michael and I will we're going to go into a discourse about the Republicans versus the Democratic platforms in the upcoming elections. But before we do that, I just want to highlight a couple of things so that our viewers are aware that there are rumblings, and actually more than rumblings, but actual discussion about, and we've actually seen it happen, is that the CBP are no longer issuing paper I-94s. So what's being issued now instead of paper I-94s are stamps in the passport.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yes, please.
You know, the Form I-94 is, remember, when somebody comes in a plane from India, for example, on a visitor visa. In the plane, when we are approaching towards the Kennedy airport, the air hostess will come in and give you some forms to fill up. And one of them is a customs form, and another is a I-94 form.
Arrival, departure,
Arrival
record.
and departure. And they want, they want to complete, of course the citizens and green card holders don't, it's the temporary non-immigrants, they do it. And when they land at the airport, the CBP is a Customs Border Protection. These officers are there to look at you, to look at your papers, and to make a decision to let you come in or not, admit or not. Admission. That's what admission in the US is. And some people, sometimes there are people that are sent back from the airport only if they are inadmissible. And when a person comes, they also put the date of the arrival and also until what date they can remain in a legal status in a we call the authorized state.
Exactly.
All that information is now in that name is there and all that. The officer what does, they take rest of the paper and one part of that I-94 is given to the person attached the passport. This way, if the person applies for a change of status, extension, or when he leaves, he can give that I-94, show that I-94 to accomplish that objective.
That's right.
Now what David is trying to explain, that they are eliminating the issuance of I-94.
Well,
so they won't get
well,
in
they're
yeah.
eliminating the issuance of paper I-94s.
Yeah.
Which means that, and it's kind of interesting, as you're speaking, Michael, I'm also thinking, you know, the law says that in order to accrue unlawful presence, you have to overstay the date certain on your I-94. What if they don't issue any I-94s?
By the way, I have raised that question
That's
already.
an interesting
No, I already
question,
sent a
right?
question to the ALA liaison committee, but I think what they will do, they stamp on the passport.
Well, that's right. What they're doing is they're stamping in the passport the date of stay, and obviously then that would give you the entry date
Yeah.
and the date that you're supposed to
That's
depart.
both
But
the
that's
dates.
not what the law says. The law says that you only accrue unlawful presence by overstaying a date certain on your I-94.
Yeah, but instead of I-94, the date certain is on the passport, so that
well,
maybe,
they're going to have to change the rules a little
yeah,
bit.
they would
So
have
it's
stamp
kind
will
of-
say arrival
yeah.
and
It's
okay.
just a technicality, but it's an
Technicality,
interesting
yeah, yes,
technicality. So
absolutely.
we'll have to see what they do.
Absolutely.
But there are two big issues that I guess arise because of this failure now to issue paper I-94s. Number one is when you fill out an I-9 form. The I-9 form is the employment verification form that everyone fills out when they become an employee in the United States. It also requires in section, I think this is section A, column A, that you have to list the I-94 number. So what are they going to do? Because there's no I-94. So they're probably going to have to change the I-9 form.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two is, and this has been the big hoopla that's been happening in the field, is that individuals who go for their driver's license have to show the I-94s because the drivers, the DMV,
No, but David, the
Division of Motor
advisory
Ve-
was that they are going to, that information will be available to the motor vehicle department online. So they will be able to access that And sometimes they don't have it, then the problem.
Well, they
But
haven't done that, Michael, and that's the thing. It's very difficult.
But they have
'cause-
not eliminated I-94 again. They're
Well,
going to.
they are. They're in the process of eliminating them.
I hope for that they will also simultaneously have informed the Social Security.
Again, they're in the process of doing that. The problem is that, as you know, the government is a very big organization, and the problem is that it takes a long time for policy making at the very, very top to get down to the policy people at the very bottom. But then you're talking about third-party agencies like
Correct.
DMV
No, I agree
in
with
the
you.
states.
But teething
So it's-
problems are in every new law, every new regulation.
Exactly. So it's been,
Initially, people have problems. The name is not there. I had another question on that also, which I referred already to our committee to talk to the government people. Is that there are many times when the information on the I-94 is incorrect. Person is coming on H-1 visa for 3 years. They give him 1 year. A person coming. Interesting thing, I'll tell you that I had a film actress, a big film actress. I cannot tell you her name. She was coming on an O1 visa or O2 visa for a film shooting. And this was a shooting program for 2 months only. And they gave her, like, I think she came in 2004, and they put her 2008. So when they gave me, the company gave me the producer going to get extension of all the people. I said, but she already has to 2008. They make a big mistake the other way around also.
Right.
But to be on the record, I corrected. I told them this is wrong. It should be correct, and then she will get the right amount of time. So my question is that if there's an inaccurate name, if the date is wrong, arrival date is wrong, departure date is wrong, we at this time are able to go to the airport,
Port of
meet the
entry,
CBP people, tell them to correct it, and many times they will correct it.
That's
Now,
right.
if there's no I-94 in their own record, they have this mistake.
Right.
They are not going to mention more than the date or arrival, departure, something in the passport stamp,
Right.
maximum.
Right.
Of course, they could also make a mistake on that stamp. But I-94 was a record of arrival that was corrected by CBP based upon all the information in there.
Right.
I don't know how that's going to work also.
No, that's a good question. And so with regard to the I-94s, if we don't have any I-94s, then the question is, how does DMV handle that for driver's license purposes? And then the next problem that we have also is with regard to students, that CBP said that they weren't placing entry stamps on the students' I-20 forms. And those are the documents that need to be taken to DMV in order to get driver's license also. So what has been suggested, and we are active members of the North American, the National Association of Foreign Student Advisors, NAFSA, what seems to be suggested at this point is that students go ahead and go make an InfoPass appointment to get that stamp on their I-20 so that they can take it to DMV and then they can get their driver's license taken care of.
David, K. Sarasara, any new law, any changes, they always have complexities to start with. Hopefully, when the dust settles down, everything then will be in order.
We do hope.
Anything else you have to announce?
So
before we go on?
actually, this is a good time for us to take a break, Michael.
Yeah.
I think we'll take a break. I have a couple of more items to cover, and then we'll go into our discussion.
Okay, let's take a short break. Right after the break, we'll continue further discussion with David on some of the items he has. And then we are going to talk about Democrats versus Republicans on immigration issues. So stay tuned, we will be back. Welcome back. Just before the break, David was talking about some of the issues relating to the I-94 changes and everything else. You have something else that you said you want to talk about?
Yeah, Michael, our viewers should know about more restrictive requirements now on obtaining Social Security Administration cards, Social Security numbers, and also individual taxpayer identification numbers. Whereas in the past it was possible to submit notarized copies, now you have to submit originals. So that's something that just came out, and they're going to be carrying that on, it seems like, as a pilot program for about 6 months. So we'll see how that shakes out. Also, I want to make our viewers aware that there is, for those of you who are familiar with the H-1B non-immigrant visa for professional and specialty occupation workers, there's a big change that is coming around. It's part of the LCA, the Labor Condition Application, which is one of the underlying applications for the H-1B. And the main change that's going on there is that it will no longer be permitted to do multiple H-1B LCAs. In other words, that when you submit one LCA, you're not going to be able to designate like 100 people on one LCA. You're going to have to do a separate LCA for
One
each
at a
person.
time.
Yeah, well, it looks like they're going to allow 10 people per LCA. So that seems like where they're going.
But would they have to put names of all the 10
we have
people?
always done single LCAs. We've never done multiple LCAs. And not only that, what's really interesting and troubling is that now the individuals' names are going to have to be listed on the LCA. And so that is going to run
So when
into
you
some...
say 10 people on a LCA, do they have put names of all the 10 people?
They're going to put the names of the 10 people, and they're going to have to put their sites where they're going to be working, and there's going to be a tremendous amount of more detail on the LCA. And what's mostly troubling for us as immigration lawyers who are doing H-1Bs and this type of work is that there are violations of state privacy laws by putting information about employment and wages on those LCAs. So this is something which is a little troubling to us. So that labor condition application form is out for comment right now, but it's something that looks like it's going to happen within the next 60 to 90 days. And obviously, we're going to keep our viewers. Let them know what's going on, because it affects not just the employers who are doing the H-1Bs, but it also affects the employees who are on the H-1Bs.
David, this too will pass, as we say.
Like a kidney stone.
Let's go. I want to ask you one more question. You know, there were some cases where these people that had accrued unlawful presence and applied for adjustment of status get the advance parole, even if the advance parole said that if you travel and if you have unlawful presence, when you come back, you may be denied under Section 9B,
Right.
or maybe required to go for a waiver if you are eligible. And some people did that because of emergencies. They didn't want to, but the father died, mother died, some sister got married, and they took a chance.
Right.
And they came back also.
Right.
Advance parole.
And they were
But when they
paroled
go
back
to
into the
immigration
United
service, they say
States.
you traveled, so you have a 10-year bar, and then they denied the application.
Right. Michael, you're talking about the Arabelli case,
yes.
right?
So I wanted to ask you that, let's explain to the people the Arabelli versus Arabelli court case, in which the court made the decision on that issue. What is the case?
Well-
how far it's applicable? Has the government accepted that and will take that into consideration? Go ahead.
Well, Michael, the Arabelli case was recently promulgated. It's a very interesting case because what it essentially says is that if the government gives you an advance parole travel document and you act, for example, if your reliance is induced to act upon that document and you leave the country and then you return, then the government should not thrust upon you the 10-year bar because you acted in reliance upon the document that was given to you. Now, what's really interesting about that case, Michael, is that it only seems to apply right now in a normal adjustment classification, and what we're looking for is to try to figure out whether or not that determination in that case can be extended in cases like TPS, where you can go ahead and get a travel document. Let's say an individual entered the United States without inspection, then gets a travel document through TPS, or let's use another example which might be near and dear to the hearts of some of our viewers. How about DACA, deferred action? Our DACA applicants will have the ability to apply for travel, assuming that, and even if they've accrued unlawful presence. So they could leave the country, they could come back in, be paroled in, and then if they're paroled in, they can apply later on for adjustment of status. Now, I'm saying that not because that's a holding, but I'm saying that potentially Arabelli could be applied that way. The problem is that the case has not yet been tested in the context of deferred action or TPS. But it's a very, very valuable holding, and it's something that we should let our viewers know about. It's something that we're monitoring to see whether or not we'll be able to use that for the benefit of our clients.
Let me make it very clear. We are talking about this for people that had to go and then are in that problem of Section 9B, unlawful presence. So don't say, like Michael